Tom, I wonder if you could share some insights. What kinds of companies, what kinds of industries present the most promising opportunities for growth from your company's perspective? What are investors looking to invest in?
Our investors are institutions. In fact, the state of Wisconsin's a big investor in our fifth fund. But the companies we've invested, we were a sub-debt junior capital fund. We are not probably touting being real strong growth companies, but we've actually been fortunate to be involved in a few companies that have grown very rapidly. But ours are things that we primarily invest in are some manufacturing, which everyone says, oh, gee, you can't do manufacturing. But we still find that has a great barrier to entry. If you've got equipment, you've got technology, you've got the wherewithal, you got the people who are skilled, and we're seeing many things come back from China that went to China, and not all, obviously. Some of the real high volume type component stuff hasn't, but we're really finding that China wasn't exactly the panacea that many people had thought, and the same with Mexico. So we still like manufacturing. We've also done a lot in the chemical and minerals area, and we like minerals a lot. If you've got it, they need it. I mean, one of my companies probably is one of the biggest exporters out of the Savannah port to China, and it's a clay business. We're basically processing dirt and putting it in a container and sending it to China because they need it to make fiberglass, and that would be something that Kent would have to explain because technology is way beyond my abilities. But they need it for the PCB boards, etc. So we really like the mineral space a lot, and we think the chemical space is also very good. But these are pretty classic cyclicals, and it's a nice time to invest in these now because you're a lot better analyst after recession than before. I mean, before you always we're going to stress test it and all that. Well, just look at the last 3 years, and every company that said, "Gee, we aren't cyclical," oh, I guess we're cyclical. So I mean, it is fun. We find that it's a real good time. We think it's a nice time in the cycle to invest in those industries.
To amplify what Tom is saying, a previous cover story we had last month was about exporting Milwaukee, and what we found is that exports from the state of Wisconsin, and in particular exports from the Milwaukee region, are rising substantially, and the tonnage out of the port of Milwaukee is rising substantially. I think what we found is that, as somebody mentioned earlier, the recession kind of culled the herd, and a lot of the weaker manufacturers who did not have the right business model and did not know how to compete globally have gone away, and the ones that survived are leaner, and they're meaner, and they're greener, and they're positioned to grow as the economy turns, and that's why the manufacturing sector is leading Wisconsin's recovery. With that, I'd like to open it up to questions from the audience for our panelists. Way in the back.
Mr. Tabor mentioned the value of intellectual property. I'm just wondering, I'd like to open it up to all of the panel members. What tools and resources do you use, have you used in your various ventures to help with the value of that intellectual property?
I think it's one of the things that's the hardest to value or to be able to get a gut feeling. And from a personal story, our company, I was 23 years old. I had 3 employees. I was the oldest of our company. And we actually invented the first flash drives. So the first solid-state disk drives that were used when we targeted industrial markets to harden PCs. Had enough money to either build a prototype or patent it. I didn't have enough money to do both. And dumb move, really dumb move. I see it every day, and the old timers in the industry all recognize that we're the first ones to think of it and do it, but didn't have the money to do it, and I should have known better, or should have looked for angels, or I wasn't smart enough to do it at that time. But usually, what I've seen is you have to find the right partners if you're trying to sell an intellectual property or value it, because especially in technology companies, it's really all you have when you first start out. And it's always, a lot of times you need the money to be able to develop a product that is sellable. And it's really hard, to sell technical concepts to non-technical people and have them believe in it. And, like through my history, I mean, I basically, again, I got Brunswick to believe in a complete conceptual idea and invest the money that started the company I have now. And so it shows that it's real and it can happen, but I've always been real interested in how different M&A groups add that component into what the value of the company is. You can look at EBITDA, well, it's just historical data on how profitable you are, but what is the real value of the company if it gets merged into another company, or to help leverage a bigger company possibly to get where they need to go, and that's interesting to me as well.
Tom, you have any thoughts on that?
I think a lot, part of it depends on how much capital, how much you're trying to get. Is it a recap to provide liquidity to yourself, or is it a recapitalization to take out a partner? Growth, okay. And that's a lot of size, and I think it depends if it's a smaller business. You're looking at a small PE firm or angel investors, because I think in today's environment, the bank is not going to provide that, and some of the larger institutional funds, we're going to invest in kind of a minimum of $15 million, which is going to be in most cases too large. So I think it's your angel network, and that probably is accessed through whatever, in Wisconsin it's a pretty small state in regards to that community, and I think it's talking to your attorney, talking to your accountant, and just starting to get names and working through and try to raise money that way. And I think Mike and Kent obviously have found that to be the right angle, and they probably can give you some names.
Tom, you mentioned to me earlier in the week that Milwaukee, for whatever reason, seems to be uniquely wired to have attorneys who are intermediaries on behalf of businesses, maybe more so in other markets. Is that true?
Yeah, we really find in Wisconsin that the corporate attorneys are very much business advisors versus Chicago and other markets. Many attorneys here in the Wisconsin market sit on companies' boards. I don't almost ever see that in Chicago. You don't see it in New York. You don't see it in a lot of places. I think that it's been, it's kind of a unique law community here where they also are, pretty collegial and work together and help each other out too. So I find we don't see that in a lot of other markets. Wisconsin's somewhat unique in that regard.
Anyone else? Well, how about a hand for our panelists?